Hello, everyone. I'm Rabbi Melinda Mersack, Director of jHUB. jHUB is an initiative of the Jewish Federation of Cleveland and the Jewish Education Center of Cleveland, and it is also an affiliate of a national organization, 18 Doors. jHUB's mission is to provide new ways for interfaith couples and families to comfortably explore and discover the meaning of Jewish culture and values. So, jHUB has been around for about 6 years, and I've been director for that amount of time. And I've learned a lot in that relatively short period of time from our jHUB couples and families. I have learned to shed my own assumptions and about the misassumptions that the Jewish community historically has held for those people, those Jewish people who marry people of different faith or cultural backgrounds. And I've learned about the damage that those assumptions can cause. Instead, I have learned the value of saying yes, of being open and understanding and welcoming, truly valuing people and letting them know that we appreciate who they are and want them as part of our Jewish family. The opportunities that that attitude creates are endless, and it only benefits our Jewish community. In short, I've become a better rabbi because of our jHUB couples and families. So in a moment, I'm going to share with you 10 tips for grandparents, people who have adult children in interfaith relationships. But first, I want to put this in context. It is important to remember that interfaith marriage is not new in Judaism. It has always been a reality. If you look at the Torah, read the Bible, you will see that the majority of our matriarchs were not Jewish, that they came from other tribes, so to speak, or other people. And it really wasn't taboo in the Torah. It was simply the reality. It wasn't until later that the rabbis strictly prohibited intermarriage, which in and of itself confirms that this was a reality and that it must have been happening at a rate high enough that the rabbis were concerned. So why were the rabbis concerned? If this was always happening, if Jews were always marrying people of different backgrounds, then why were the rabbis so concerned? Why did they become so concerned with interfaith marriage? Well, as you know, our people has a history of being persecuted. And in order to protect ourselves from being scapegoated, from the fear, the ignorance, and violent acts committed against us, we became a more insular community. It was safer to isolate ourselves and to only socialize with other Jews. Today, while anti-Semitism still exists, we enjoy significant freedom, particularly in this country, where we are able to live our lives freely as Jews any way we choose, and we are accepted into the greater community. Perhaps this greater acceptance has led to the increased rates in interfaith marriage in more recent years. But again, it is important to remember that this has always been our reality. What's important is that we can learn to be accepting. When we open our arms and welcome those who, by virtue of marrying someone Jewish or partnering with someone who is Jewish, have chosen to become part of our Jewish family. So, 10 tips for grandparents who have grandchildren that may be a result of an interfaith union. And the goal of all of these tips is always to strengthen the family unit, to strengthen the relationships within the family. So, tip number 1. The most important thing is your relationship with your children and grandchildren, more important than the religion of the grandchildren. You may need to let go of fantasies you had of what your life as a grandparent would be like. So this seems common sense, right? You love your grandchildren, and that comes first. But it's really important not to let religion or any conflict around religion get in the way of that loving relationship. So your grandchildren's reality, how they are celebrating living Jewishly or not in their own home, may be different than what you had hoped for. But it is important to make the most of whatever the reality is so that you can maintain a positive relationship. Tip number 2, treat your child, their partner, and their goals for their children with respect. Check with your grandchildren's parents regarding anything you want to do of a religious nature. Make sure it doesn't conflict with their goals for their children. So this is essential as well, that the role of a grandparent is different than the role of the parent, and the parent has final say in the choices that they're making for their children, and it is important that we respect that. So we don't want to go behind our adult children's back with our own agenda. We want to make sure that we have an open and transparent relationship. So for example, as I said, don't ever go behind their backs to promote Judaism unless you have had this conversation with them and it is something that they are okay with. So for example, don't take your grandchildren and just happen to pop into a synagogue for a Purim carnival unless you've already received the parents' permission. Or signing up for PJ Library Books, which sends books and music with Jewish content every month free of charge to the children's home. This is a wonderful opportunity. You can sign your grandchildren up for PJ Library Books. Contact your local federation. However, please, please, please ask the parents' permission first. Make sure you have their consent. Tip number 3. This should be easy. Have a loving relationship with your grandchildren. It will predispose them to think well of your values and your religion. That loving relationship is the best thing you can do to help set the stage for transmitting your values to your grandchildren. In other words, if you have an environment filled with love and you are Jewish and perhaps you're sharing Jewish things with your grandchildren, Judaism will then be associated with love. You'll be making memories together for these grandchildren that they will carry with them their whole lives. Tip number 4, display your Judaism. There are likely things in your home that are Jewish. Make these things visible and share what they are and the meanings with your grandchildren. Tip number 5, get rid of your assumptions about other faiths. Especially if your grandchild is being raised outside of Judaism, explore what religion means to them. Create a climate where they can equally be curious about Judaism. You can still share your stories about your childhood and your Jewish memories. Even if your grandchildren don't share your religion, they can still share your Jewish holidays and as a cultural and family experience. Again, it's about creating memories with your grandchildren, memories of love, perhaps shared around Jewish experiences that will last with them their whole lives. Tip number 6, let them know Judaism is important to you and why. Let your actions show what is important to you. If you want them to care about being Jewish, they need to know why. Let them hear how Judaism works in your life and why it has significance for you. It's important to be genuine when you do this, that your words and your actions are a genuine reflection of who you are and how you live your life. So, for example, I would not recommend picking up Jewish rituals that are new to you, that you don't necessarily feel that there's great meaning in personally for yourself, only if it is to create a Jewish experience with your grandchild. Find Jewish experiences that are true to who you are and how you live your life Jewishly. So for example, if you say Jewish values are important to you and gimilut chasadim, doing acts of loving kindness is important, then share that with your grandchildren if that is something that you normally do. Maybe you volunteer in ways that help care for other people. Then you can share these experiences with your grandchildren, and you can tell them that this is an act steeped in Jewish values, the value of Gemilut Chasadim. Or if observing Shabbat is important to you and you get a sense of calm and replenishment, renewal, it's a period of reflection and rest for you. If that is meaningful, however you observe Shabbat, then share that with your grandchildren and explain why and what it does for you. Tip number 7, be honest about your doubts and complaints about Judaism. Judaism is not a religion of belief, or at least not only a religion of belief. We have a long history of sages and rabbis who were doubters. We're even called B'nai Yisrael, the children of Israel, but Yisrael, we know, means to struggle with God. So we as Jews question God and struggle with God, and that's okay. In fact, that is how we learn and grow, by questioning and debating. So it is important, again, to just have this honest conversation with your grandchildren as well, because that honesty cultivates and strengthens your relationship. Tip number 8, have fun being Jewish. Find ways to really celebrate with friends and family. Being Jewish, we know, is more than just a religion. It's not only going to synagogue and prayer. It is a way of life. So, for example, if you love cooking and you share cooking with your grandchildren, perhaps make recipes that are used for Jewish holidays. If you love music and you share music with your grandchildren, perhaps share concerts of Jewish music or Israeli music with them. If you like making arts and crafts, find ways to make Jewish objects. You can make a mezuzah, a challah cover, the rituals that are used in the ceremony of Havdalah, which marks the end of Shabbat. There is no end to what Jewish arts and crafts you can do with your grandchildren. Tip number 9, never compete with the other grandparents. Make them your friends instead. Invite them to your holiday celebrations and make sure that they understand what's going on, that they feel comfortable and included, particularly if the grandchildren are being raised as Jews. You're inviting them into this family celebration. You want them to feel a part of it. And go to their celebrations when you are invited. This keeps the grandchildren from feeling like they have to choose one part of the family over another. Tip number 10. Show respect for all religions, especially in front of your grandchildren, but always. Never belittle or make fun of any practice or belief. If you do, your grandchildren may choose to avoid religions because they remember it as a topic of conflict in their family. Again, you don't want to create an environment of conflict. Again, it's focusing on love and respect and openness and creating this safe environment where they can explore Judaism with you in a way that is being respectful and honoring their parents' wishes and doesn't put the child, that grandchild, in an uncomfortable position where they feel that Judaism is a source of conflict and instead they might want to push Judaism away instead of maintaining these loving memories of Jewish life as a family and their relationship with you. So my last slide here has my contact information. I invite you to reach out at any time if you have a question or perhaps if you'd like to have a personal conversation about your particular family situation. I'd be glad to speak with you. Remember, the goal is always to strengthen the family bonds. And the best way to do this is by being open, loving, and respectful. Strong communication is the key. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you a Chag Sameach, a happy Shavuot.